Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And could the Las Vegas Raiders trade for Montez Sweat? That's the topic of discussion here on today's show. There was a report that came out this week that said one team has made an offer to the Commanders for Sweat. Unfortunately, that offer has not been disclosed. Nobody knows who the one team is. So the reason why I am here on today's show is this. I'm wondering, were the Raiders the team that reached out to Washington? Were the Raiders the team that have already tried to go out and get Montez Sweat? Because we've seen the rumors. We've seen the reports out there. The Raiders are looking for an edge rusher. They're looking for a replacement for Chandler Jones. So coming up here on today's show, were the Raiders the team that called Washington? And should the Silver and Black try to trade for him? Plus, I'm going to sprinkle this one in as well. At the very, very end of the show, I'm going to tell you what it's going to take to trade for Mr. Sweat. So if you haven't seen the latest around the Silver and Black and their pursuit for a defensive end, according to Dianna Russini, there have been whispers around the league that Josh McDaniels could be in trouble if Las Vegas doesn't start winning. So this team is in win-now mode. The important parts about that are the Raiders are in win-now mode. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. If Josh McDaniels' job is actually at stake, he better start buying. The Raiders better start trying to win football games. And the last time that I checked, Montez Sweat is absolutely positively going to help you do that. Then there was a new report that came out today from The Athletic on the Raiders during the NFL trade deadline, and this is what The Athletic had to say. The Raiders remain in buy mode with the trade deadline approaching, and according to league sources, their focus when it comes to trades will be to find ways to further their effort to compete this season, particularly if they can land a pass rusher. So, you guys already know I am a big, big believer where there is smoke, there is fire. You got Dianna Russini putting some smoke out there that this team's trying to win right now. You got The Athletic, again, saying that they're going to be buyers. They've been looking for a replacement for Chandler Jones for a very, very long time. You add all of those things up, and if you watch this show religiously enough, you'll know that I said, honestly, probably the best replacement for Chandler Jones for the Raiders is, in fact, Montez Sweat. So maybe they're finally starting to listen to the nation here a little bit. Here's your opportunity, though. I want you to be Dave Ziegler. I want you to be the GM, and I want you to comment on this question. It's going to be the pinned comment on today's show. Should the Raiders go out and trade for Montez Sweat? I want you to give me a yes. I want you to get me a no. I'm going to be looking right now. My answer here around Montez Sweat and whether or not the Raiders should go out and try to get him, it's simple. Hell freaking yeah. As Jeremy would say, yeah, the Raiders should absolutely, positively try to trade for Montez Sweat. If you're trying to be in buy now mode, this is a great player to do it. There's a lot of expensive names out there, and I get it. He's not Brian Burns, okay? No doubt about it. He ain't Brian Burns. He's not even Chase Young. But you know what? With this defense, what Patrick Graham likes to run, the overall fit, and the price tag, I think it's a great, great fit. What's funny about this is, you know, for the people who are the OGs and for the people who have been watching the show for a long time, man, shout out to all the real ones out there for getting us to 150,000 subscribers. But I made this video back in 2019, and guess who's on the cover? Montez Sweat. I wanted the Raiders to draft Montez Sweat over Clelin Ferrell, but unfortunately, the Raiders at the time, and they didn't watch my draft coverage. And you want to talk about an old school setup. This is me. Yeah, I used to rock the silver jacket. I got the Oakland thing in the background. But here were my top defensive ends of the 2019 draft. Nick Bosa, got that one. Josh Allen, I think we got that one too. Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, I had all over Clelin Ferrell. And yet, Gruden and Mayock said, F you, F your dreams. We're going to go with Clelin Ferrell. My bottom line is this. I've liked Montez Sweat's game for a long time. I believe that he would be a really good fit with this team, not only in the numbers that he's been able to put up this season, but his overall ability to get after the quarterback. If you put Montez Sweat and Max Crosby on the field at the same time, both players that came out in that 2019 draft, both 27 years old. I then extend Sweat for a very long time, and now I have my edge rushing duo for the next 4 to 5 years. You have Montez Sweat, you have Max Crosby. Good luck trying to stop that. Now, we make videos every single day. We go live all the time. But my important message on this show is this. We've been making videos every single day since 2019. We put out a lot of draft content. So if you watch this show now, guess what? We're going to be here during the draft. I'm going to be here doing free agency. I don't take any days off. I'm committed to making the Raiders great again. That's what I'm here for. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because if they do trade for Montez Sweat, oh man, it's going to get wild here on the Raiders Report. Almost more wild than Raider Ron, Tri-Van, Wild One, Patrick B, all of Mount Raidamore, John Borelli, throwing down a big old bang. Coming up next here on the show, what is Montez Sweat worth in a trade? I reached out to a Commanders source that covers the team, and I said, give me the best idea of what it's going to cost, and I'm also going to give you some trade ideas. That's coming up here on the show, but I got to give a shout-out to my love here, Prize Picks. I am obsessed with Prize Picks. And the reason is, when you cover a team like the Raiders, and they frustrate you the way that they do on game days, sometimes I need a little bit of joy in my life, and that's why I love fantasy football. It's why it was my very first love. And if you want to get started, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS, and you can get started with our awesome sponsor. So, with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can do LeBron James plus Devontae Adams at a 10.5 combo of 3-point field goals made plus receptions. This is why I love Prize Picks, because it is daily fantasy sports made easy. Now, for me personally, I'm not an NBA guy. I'm not going to put my money where my mouth is on NBA. So you're only still going to see football picks from me. And I might be able to learn a little bit more as time comes with basketball. But for this week, I'm just going to go with Jared Goff more, Amon-Ra St. Brown more, and Josh Jacobs less on total touchdowns. I actually hope I reverse jinx myself here. I'm going to pull a book out of Buddy Bears here and say, hey, if I pick against the Raiders, maybe they'll win. If I pick against Josh Jacobs and if I go with the Lions, maybe it'll reverse psychology. I feel like I'm going to get a win-win, and you guys can too. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players get injured. For football and basketball games, if you've ever had a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So, Nation, what the hell are you waiting for? Get started right now with our sponsor. That link's going to be available to you guys down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. Coming up here on the Raiders Report, what is Sweat worth in a trade? It's a great question. And anytime that you think about the NFL trade deadline, I know I say this a lot as well, where I look at yard sales, right? I can remember when I was a kid in the middle of nowhere, central Pennsylvania, shout out to the 570, and my mom, man, we were frequent flyers at yard sales, but we did it because you could get a good discount. And the NFL trade deadline, I like to also look at as a yard sale. And right now, I'm looking at the Washington Commanders. There's a lot of drama going on around there. No doubt about it. But you know what? I know they want to keep Chase Young. I don't know if they want to keep Montez Sweat, which is why my eyes are on him. But hey, this is what Jeremy Fowler had to say on the Commanders trade rumors. Young is a hot name right now, and teams have absolutely been calling the Commanders to see what they want to do with him. And Young and Montez Sweat, Washington has 2 edge rushers slated to be unrestricted free agents at the end of the year. The presumption around the league is that the team can't or won't be able to keep and pay both of them. You can only franchise one player per year. But under new ownership and with uncertainty surrounding head coach and chief organizational decision maker Ron Rivera, the Commanders might not be in a position to have decided what to do with Young yet. Heck, it's not out of question that they could trade Sweat instead if the offers are better. And I agree with this. And the people that I talk to, the Commanders person who covers this team that I continuously talk to, says that, you know, the Commanders have to choose between Chase Young and Montez Sweat. And I make the argument that Montez Sweat is a hell of a football player. However, they drafted him at number 2 overall. This team, I believe, is more and more invested in Chase Young than they are Montez Sweat. And if you're potentially going to be bringing in new ownership, right? Like you're bringing in a new head coach, you're probably going to roll with the guy that you drafted at number 2, which means Montez Sweat now is yard sale material, though he doesn't deserve to be in that yard sale. So my question to you is this. What is Montez Sweat worth in a trade? I'm going to tell you what our Commanders source here at Chat Sports had to say, but I'm just genuinely curious about what you think. This show was built on the backs of the nation. This show is built on the idea of you and your buddies, you and your girlfriends, whoever you talk sports with. You're all sitting around, maybe watching a little Thursday Night Football. You're all sitting around watching a Raiders game. You're sitting down having a cold one, maybe 2 or 3 on the Raiders report, and you're talking about what is he worth. That's what I want to know. I want to know what you guys have to say, and I want to know what you're constantly thinking, which is why we made this show the way we did. So Montez Sweat, what is he worth in a trade? According to our Commander source, he is going to be in the second-round pick territory. You're not going to have to give up a first for him. If you're going to go with a third-rounder, you better throw in a talented player on top of that. So the way I'm looking at Montez Sweat, I'm thinking second-round pick is kind of the area. So now knowing that he's like, all right, second-round pick area, what are the Raiders having to give up? So what you're going to see here is this. My trade ideas involving the Commanders and Sweat. And I don't have just one. I don't have just 2. Hell, I have 3 different trade ideas with Washington, with the silver and black, figuring out a way where Max Crosby can actually get somebody that helps him get after the quarterback. So my first trade that I draw up is kind of a simple one, and I've already put out now like 2 or 3 trade ideas around Sweat, and I'm always trying to do a better job of giving you guys different ideas. I'm not just going to do the same trade over and over and over again. That's super boring. So the first trade is this. Montez Sweat, the Commanders get a second-round pick in 2024. In return, the Raiders also get a 7th-rounder. So this idea, this now gives the Raiders 4 7th-round picks, which I know that they like to be able to use in case they want to have to trade up into the 6th. Maybe they want to trade up into the 5th. They did that a lot last year with 12 total draft picks, only finished with 9, but they wanted to have the ability to trade up, though. Haven't used Amari Burney, haven't used Chris Smith much at all. Hey, is what it is, though. Let's go to the second trade idea that I have here. Montez Sweat, Commanders get a 3rd-round pick, and you get Malcolm Kuntz. So, yes, I know that Malcolm's been playing a little bit better. He's in the final year of his deal. So, to me, if the Commanders want to go a little bit cheaper, you send them a player who's a good player, and you get a 3rd-round pick. To me, I like this trade more than the first one that I showed you. And then let's just get, it's not quite right. Okay. And then the third one here is, let's just get wild. So the source that I talked to from the Commanders told me this. He goes, if they were to trade for a player, it would probably be either a running back or an offensive lineman. So I said, all right, let's let our hair down here a little bit. Here's the craziest deal out of them all. Montez Sweat and Antonio Gibson of the silver and black. The Commanders get Josh Jacobs, Jermaine Illuminor due to his flexibility and his ability to play offensive guard and tackle, and they also get a 3rd-round pick. I know that this one's going to be very unpopular because you're giving up Jacobs, who's a great running back, but Jacobs hasn't done much this season. The Raiders, I wonder if they regret franchise tagging him, and could they potentially go out and get a running back that's got a little bit more pass-catching ability since they're really struggling to run the rock. But this is my 3rd trade idea. Let's get a little bit wild and crazy. What do you think? All right, what's your favorite trade? Was it the first one? If it was, please type 1 below. Curious to see what you guys have to say here. Was it the second trade? Is this one your favorite? Or is it the 3rd and final trade here? You're giving up quite a bit, but I would say right now you got to look at the idea of you giving up a 3rd-round pick for Montez Sweat, which I know this one sucks. This to me is the Raiders are trying to take a loss, and they know that Jermaine Illuminor just got benched. They know that they don't want to have to give up a 2nd-round pick in case they want to use that pick to trade up even higher to get a QB. This one I don't love, but it is a way for them to be able to move a few players around and get Montez Sweat. My favorite trade out of all those, number 2, and honestly, it's not all that close. If you guys want to continue, okay, If you guys want to continue to be able to follow me on Instagram, be able to follow me on Twitter, I am at MitchellRenz365. I try to put out a lot of content. Been trying to grow on social media. That way I have a better chance to interact with new people, get more people interacting with the Raiders Report, and continue to grow this amazing family that we have here. So much love to everyone that tuned in. Much love to everyone that's watching the show. And remember, if the Raiders trade for Montez Sweat, boy, oh boy, shit's going to get wild here on the show. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got those notifications turned on.